Hey friends, welcome to the essential guide for parenting ADHD in 2025. Now, if you've ever ended the day thinking, why can't my child just listen? This is for you. Maybe mornings feel like a war zone, homework's a disaster, and your brilliant, big hearted child seems constantly in trouble for things they didn't mean to do. You are not a bad parent, and your child is not broken. As a parent, we are often operating from the information we know, the skills that we have, but with better information and cues for how to use the appropriate skills, it can transform our relationships. So here's the secret. ADHD isn't a behavior problem. It's a delay in self-regulation. And with the right support, your child can thrive. On Fridays in our house, we get slushies for the kids after pickup, and we tend to bring them home and hang out or play in the backyard. And without fail, several kids will set their drinks on a table, only to realize that the moment their back is turned, our 3-year-old is sipping from each and every cup while holding his own full cup in his hand. That story in real time can be funny in a way that it wouldn't be if my 16-year-old was engaging in the same behavior. And what's the difference here, guys? The difference is the ability for self-regulation. In this video, we're going to reframe everything, what ADHD really is, how your child's brain actually works, and why structure and connection, not punishment, are the secret to lasting change. I'm Dr. Larry Mitnaul, double board certified child and adolescent psychiatrist and a father of 7, foster and bio, and I'm thrilled to compress over a decade of clinical work and parenting to give you the tools I've given to over 100,000 families that follow me across social media platforms. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Now, while you're buckling your seatbelts, don't forget to like and subscribe if you appreciate content like this and would like to see more of it here. Now, if you've ever felt like your child isn't listening, can't focus, melts down over the smallest things, you're not alone. You may be parenting a child with ADHD, but what if I told you ADHD isn't a discipline issue or a motivation problem? One of the renowned researchers like Dr. Russell Barclay remind us that ADHD is a developmental delay in self-regulation. It means your child struggles to maintain and manage impulses, time, and emotions, not because they won't, but because they biologically can't yet. Today, I want to give you more than just tools. I want to offer a new way to see your child, not as a problem to solve, but as a beautiful growing vine. So here's going to be the core analogy I want you to hold on to. Parenting a child with ADHD is like tending a vibrant, fast-growing vine. Without a trellis, it sprawls chaotically, but with the right support, it climbs and flourishes. So structure is the trellis, connection is the gardener. How do we learn to build both? Well, let's dig in. Here's the most helpful framework I found in understanding ADHD. Understanding this is really going to save you years of frustration just by better understanding this concept. So bear with me. Executive functioning affects your child's ability to plan, to delay gratification, to even remember instructions, and also to manage emotions. Now that is huge, right? Those are a lot of operations that the brain is tasked with. And here's what that looks like in everyday life. So I want to give you some examples. Maybe impulse control. This is like a faulty braking system. Your child may want to stop themselves from blurting out, from grabbing something, from interrupting other people, but they just can't, at least not yet. Even with maximum effort, the brake just doesn't engage in time. And so you might see this when they run into the street chasing a ball despite knowing the rules. Their brain reacts after the action, not before. Time blindness. Your child may have no internal clock, or at least a very diminished one, and they live in the now and struggle to plan for what happens next. And so they don't feel urgency until the consequence of life is immediate, like the bus actually pulling up in front of your house before it's time to go. That's also why video games are so captivating. They give instant feedback, rewards, and structure. So real life, often those rules aren't apparent to that style of brain. Also, emotional intensity. Think of that faulty braking system that we talked about, now applied to emotions. A tiny disappointment like getting the wrong color cup or losing a game can cause a full emotional storm. Your child may slam doors, sob uncontrollably, or lash out, not because they're being dramatic, but because their brain is overwhelmed and can't self-soothe. What about task initiation, right? It might look like laziness or avoidance, but it's more like paralysis. Starting a non-preferred task like homework feels like standing at the bottom of a mountain. So your child may pivot to activities with short-term payoff, sharpening pencils, needing to pee, organizing their desk, right? These actions feel productive and doable in the moment. Working memory. You say, put on your shoes, grab your backpack, and meet me at the door. They put on their shoes and start playing with the toy. They heard you. They just can't hold all the steps in their mind. Their brain's mental sticky notes don't stick. And this is when dads in my office often lean over and say, well, duh, that describes all of childhood. And they're not entirely wrong, but here's the key. With ADHD, it's not just immaturity, it's a measurable delay in brain development. So even when your best, most consistent parenting may feel like Groundhog Day, where nothing sticks and you're back at square one the next morning, that's how this feels. These behaviors are not laziness or disrespect. They are the outward signs of an inward lag in brain development. Your child might be 10 on the outside, but their ability to regulate might be closer to that of a 6 or 7 year old. And that's not an excuse, it's a roadmap. When you start to see these patterns not as character flaws, but as developmental delays, it unlocks everyday brain based compassion. Instead of asking their brain, why won't they just, you begin to ask, what kind of support would help this brain to work? Reframing. You wouldn't scold a vine for not climbing, you'd give it a trellis. That diagnosis you may be grieving, it's not a label of limitation, it's a lens, and it will help you meet your child right where they are with the kind of clarity that leads to connection and the kind of structure that brings real growth. Now, before we get to the traps of this pattern of life, let me share with you the sponsor of today's video who also cares about embodying the love that we hope to share within family life, and that's Be Well Collective Apparel. Check out the Try Again apparel line, which features my catchphrase that reminds parents to assume the best of their young kids by inviting them to practice this style of conversation that helps us to meet their hearts. Check them out in the link in the show notes in the description to support the movement. Now, back to me. Now, let's be clear. ADHD is not a knowledge deficit. Your child knows what they're supposed to do. They often know the rule, the consequence, and even the expected behavior. But the knowledge gets blocked at the door by executive functioning challenges. That's why just talking more almost never works. In fact, it often adds stress and clutter to an already overloaded mind. The breakdown isn't in knowing, it's in doing. And the gap between those two is bridged by executive functions like task initiation, right? They want to get started, but the engine won't turn over. Working memory, they can't hold your long explanation in their mind. Inhibitory control, they act before thinking, right? That's the braking system. Time management, they underestimate how long things take or get stuck in the moment. When we misunderstand ADHD, we make some well-intentioned but harmful mistakes. We end up talking too much and acting too late. Parents often in my office or will describe to me can over-explaining, thinking that their child will respond to just more and more reason. But ADHD brains struggle to hold verbal instruction. So instead, behavior responds better to quick, consistent visual cues and action-based guidance. We expect maturity beyond their developmental age often, and so it's easy to think they should know better. But children with ADHD often lag 2 to 3 years behind in self-regulation. They may look 10, but in their emotional control and executive skills, they're closer to 6 or 7. We use punishment instead of structure, right? That can be something that really gets in the way. Harsh consequences rarely work and often backfire. Instead of building a skill, they're creating shame or disconnection. Remember, kids do well when they can, not just when they want to. So here's an example. A parent may take away screen time for every meltdown or homework struggle, but when meltdowns happen daily, this creates a cycle of failure and resentment. Instead, the parent could build a visual checklist and co-regulate during transitions, shaping behavior rather than punishing it. And I want to give you a key insight. ADHD runs in families. So research shows that nearly 40 to 55% of these children with ADHD have at least one parent who also meets criteria for ADHD. So if some of these struggles feel uncomfortably familiar, you're probably not imagining it. You may be parenting a child with ADHD while living with ADHD yourself. And that's not a weakness, it's an opportunity for shared growth. But it does mean you may need support tools or even your own evaluation. Getting that help isn't selfish, it's foundational. All right, so here's the reframe. If you feel like you're fumbling, forgetting, yelling, reacting, it's not a moral failure. It may be a sign that you too need a trellis. You're not alone, and your awareness can bring your child's advantage back. Now, before we jump to the how-tos, let me share with you the sponsor of today's video who also cares about embodying the love that we hope to share within family life, and that's Be Well Collective Apparel. Check out the Try Again apparel line, which features my catchphrase that reminds parents to assume the best of their young kids by inviting them to practice the style of conversation that helps us to meet their hearts. Check them out in the link in the show notes in the description to support the movement. Now, let's get back to me. Structure is like a strong ladder that helps your child climb higher. It's not about being strict or bossy. It's about giving your child the extra help their brain needs to stay on track. So here's why structure matters. Routines make kids feel safe. When they know what comes next, they feel calmer and more in control. And so reminders also help the brain to stay focused. Pictures, lists, these things are time savers and like little nudges that guides their brains on. Rules also create freedom. When expectations are clear, kids don't have to guess or worry. They just know what to do. So simple ways to add structure at home. Picture checklists. Maybe you're using drawings or words to show steps like getting dressed or brushing your teeth. Let your child check things off as they go. Perhaps you're using timers. So you're setting a timer for playtime, for cleanup, or getting ready. Countdowns help kids understand time better. Maybe you're breaking things down into smaller steps. So instead of clean your room, you're saying, put your toys in the bin. Make routines instead of giving reminders. Try saying, hey, after snack, it's always homework time. Use points or stickers, right? That's another way to do this. So give small rewards for effort. Let your child see their progress. Remember, structure again doesn't mean being mean. It means being clear, kind, and consistent. And it gives your child the support they need to succeed. So you're not forcing the vine to grow, you're giving it something steady to climb. Structure may be the trellis, but connection is what makes the vine reach in the first place. ADHD is often experienced as rejection. So kids hear no, get more corrections, and feel like they're always falling short. But connection is the antidote. Connection tells your child the following: you're safe, you're seen, you are not broken. And guess what? Connection isn't just warm fuzzies, it's brain science. So safe, responsive relationships build emotional regulation. That's attachment in action. All right, so how do we build connection? Here's some tips. Special time. So try to set aside 10 to 15 minutes daily for one-on-one child-led play. No phones, right? So that you're more aware and present to one another. Avoid just corrections and invite them to follow your lead. I also want you to name the good. I want you to catch them being successful at the skill that you're building and say it out loud. I saw how you pause before yelling. Great self-control. I want you to reframe and use connection before correction. Get on their level, use eye contact, and offer physical touch before giving direction. You can even validate emotions. It makes sense you're upset. Losing is hard, right? Again, validation doesn't mean agreement. It means acknowledgement. Another foundational stone, staying calm. And parents, I know this can be really a challenge. Your calm becomes their calm, though. And that doesn't mean perfection. It means being the emotional anchor in their storm. You can't prune a vine that doesn't trust your hands. So connection gives your discipline credibility. When kids feel loved and understood, they're more open to guidance. Speaking of helpful guidance, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Bark. If you're looking for a way to safely and securely monitor your child's presence on their phone, as well as get practical advice on parenting in the tech age, check out my discount code for Bark. They offer an amazing app and even have devices preloaded that both look like the typical modern phone and watch, but they're come equipped with the most up-to-date monitoring software I have come across. As you know, Bark is the only phone my family has trusted as our kids have climbed the heights of independence, and it's the only device I trust. Check them out in the show notes or the description below. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, guys, so here are 5 tools you can start using today. The 2-minute rule. So if a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Model this for yourself and praise your child when they use it. It combats procrastination. It's teaching that short form brain how to follow through and persevere. Use first then language, right? First brush your teeth, then we'll read a book. This structure is simple, right? It almost sounds too simple, but it is effective, and it reduces negotiation and gives a clear path forward. Body doubling. Now, that means sitting nearby during hard tasks like homework. Your presence supports their focus and accountability without hovering. Movement breaks. Build in breaks every 15 to 20 minutes. Let your child run, stretch, bounce on a ball. Physical movement resets the brain. The calm down corner. So you can create a cozy, judgment-free zone for emotional regulation and fill it with some sensory things, some calming visuals, maybe some soft textures. Now here's the pearl if you've heard people talk about this idea, but not had success in using it. I want you to try to use the calm down corner proactively, not just as a response to meltdowns. We're just going to look for times when we need to practice being calm. And bonus tip, I want you to use timers and visual cues to make time visible. Visual timers, sand timers, and even Alexa countdowns can all help externalize time. Structure and connection go a long way, but sometimes you really need more. And in many pediatric disorders, we begin environment, diet, exercise among the first things to try, and that's the same here. However, where ADHD is significantly impacting your child's ability for success at making friends, at academic performance, at managing their own life and time, medication can make a substantially positive benefit. So here's when to seek professional help. You ready? If your child's behavior is disrupting family, life, school, or friendships in a really problematic way, if they're experiencing anxiety, depression, or low self-worth as a result of some of these struggles, if they're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, or like nothing is working, then a child psychiatrist, psychologist, or developmental pediatrician can provide clarity, diagnosis, and also talk through some of the treatment options. Medication, therapy, and coaching all have a place in a comprehensive plan. Now, if you suspect you may have ADHD yourself, getting evaluated is a gift to both you and your child. When parents thrive, kids rise. You made it to the end, and that says something big. You care. You're not failing. You're just parenting a child with different wiring. That wiring isn't broken, it's brilliant, but it needs support. When you bring structure and connection together, you become the parent your child needs, a safe, sturdy, loving trellis. So let's go back to the beginning. ADHD isn't a discipline issue, it's a developmental one. And that means with the right support, growth is possible. You're not alone, you're not behind, you're growing too. And every small shift you make, every checklist, every hug, every pause, builds the future your child deserves. So I want you to stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, your child isn't giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time, and you are their biggest hope. Thanks for joining me in this masterclass on helping your child manage their ADHD. Keep growing. I'm Dr. Mitnaul. Thanks for watching. And if this video resonated with you, like, share, and drop a comment below. Also, let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Check the description for additional resources. Guys, let's grow together. Be among the first to know when the book is released by joining our email list. Remember, there's no connection like your connection. Shout out to my favorite producer and eldest son who goes by Slip Shuffle. And as always, my friends, be well.